Hi, Henk Akkermans here, Supply Network Dynamics Chapter 3, Part 2, Living in a Complex World. Before we go into various ways in which decision making is difficult for us humans, let's first acknowledge that it has become more difficult also. Three reasons actually, if we compare the world that our parents lived in and our grandparents lived in and our world, why we have a harder job. First of all, there's increasing volatility in the environment. Here are two graphs of the natural disasters and the technological disasters over the past 100 years. And what you see is a steep incline in times that things really go wrong. The underlying effect of this may be that we're all much more interconnected. It's easier to survive a major disaster in the 1970s if that happens on the other side of the world and you have no connection to it than it is today, when everything is interconnected. And when we have an earthquake in Japan, immediately or just few days later, factories in Germany and the US stop working because they don't have the components anymore that they need, which were manufactured in Japan. So we're highly interconnected nowadays, and we have far more people living also in densely populated areas near the coast, near the fertile areas of where earthquakes and volcano eruptions are, etc. So yes, there are more and more reasons why our life has become dangerous. So there's an increasing volatility in our world. The second reason is that technology has become much more complex. The picture on the left is a picture of my first car, an Opel Bay Kadett from 1973. Not precisely the same one. This one wasn't geared up and pimped up as a police car almost, but it had the same colors. And what you can see on the right picture is what it looked like under the hood. So if you would say where is here the dynamo, oh, you would hear an echo. This is a car that I mostly could maintain myself, although I'm definitely not a very handy guy. But nowadays it's become increasingly more difficult to even replace a light bulb in your car. And that's true of everything in technology. Technology has become much more complex. And as a result, it's not just the cars or the bicycles we use, but it's everything around us, our computer networks, etc. So figuring out what's actually happening, what's the root cause of something, has become more difficult. And the third reason is one of increasing interconnectedness. So this table that you have here comes from a book by Mason and Mitrov that I read some 15 years ago, but actually quite a bit older. And this already pointed out the notion, take any major problem nowadays, be it, I don't know, drugs, or be it the war in Syria, whatever. Well, I take a drug problem, for instance, that has an economic dimension, that the people depend on that. There's a political dimension also. There are certain opinions on, certainly here in the Low Countries, of what should be prohibited and what could be allowed. There's a military dimension even on it, because in the war on drugs, quite often military people are used, and also the police are more and more armed with weapons. In Mexico, it seems to be a civil war almost. And there's an ecological dimension also, because farmers often, the poor areas, depend on their livelihood. And there are interconnections between all of these. You can link, and that's the purpose here, an exercise, find one of these cells in this table that has a connection that does not have a clear connection. So that means that if you have the war in Syria, or at least the civil war in Syria, or any major country for that matter, always these aspects are interrelated. And it also makes it more difficult to solve problems, because not only do you have these different aspects, but to solve it you need all the stakeholders from those different aspects to arrive at a joint conclusion. And that is difficult indeed. So those are three reasons why our world has become a lot more complex, and why decision making has become even more difficult than it was before.